Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Life. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful day. And wherever it is that you're joining us from around the world, thank you, as always, for making us part of your day. As you know, we do what we do for you to bring you some amazing conversations and amazing guests. And today is no different. I am so excited to welcome to the show Mr. Bill Brady. And I am excited to talk about this amazing product that he is definitely going to be telling us all about. But this is something that is near and dear to me as far as working with parents. So, Bill, how are you doing this evening?
Wonderful, Fawns. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with everyone.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation, Bill, because when I saw what it is that you're doing and, following you on LinkedIn, and I know I recently saw a clip of you with speaking with, I believe it was Josh from Parent Pro Tech, and they're doing some great things as well. Through the work that I do within my district, I am always looking out for platforms that are not only going to help our students, but also might be an answer for some parents that may be feeling a little anxious as far as screen time. Obviously, a lot of with cyberbullying, a lot of apps, a lot of things that are going on out there. And so I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about Troomi. But before we get into it, I would love to have my audience get to know you a little bit more. So I would love for you to give us a little brief introduction and then obviously what your context is within the education space as you work with parents and you work with students alike. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, as you mentioned, I'm the co founder and the CEO of Troomi. My most important job is that I'm the dad to five incredible kids. Our oldest is 20, our youngest is 8. And I love to share that because it kind of lets people know as we talk about all these issues relative to kids and technology and everything that's going with that these days. I'm right in the middle of it with you. Like every family in the country is dealing with questions around kids and technology and what and how much and when. And I'm right there with you. This opportunity to be a dad is just the greatest part of my life and has frankly brought me into this whole space of looking for better ways to introduce technology to kids. I've always had a sensitivity going back 20 years. I mean, long before we had cell phones everywhere and certainly before social media, I've always had this sensitivity about the effect of technology in humans. And I studied in school, how does technology potentially change us or dehumanize us and change the human experience? And I jumped into this space after a career in marketing, got into this about 6 years ago, and really with the goal to help kids everywhere. And in that process, support parents, support teachers. And we'll talk about some of those things today.
Yes, absolutely. And that's such a great backstory to know. And for our audience members, actually, just to again connect with you, just to see where it is that you're coming from, and especially being a father as well. So, and you can relate to a lot of the things that parents are facing right now with obviously with social media. And like you mentioned before, I grew up in an era where we didn't have the cell phones, but I do remember, in seventh grade, eighth grade, junior high, beepers were the big thing. And so I was like begging my parents, "Hey, can I get a beeper?" And then when I got into college, it was like, "Okay, your first cell phone." And then of course from then on it just took off. But one of the things, like I said, that I was really excited about is to talk to you to get your story about Troomi, how it came about, because I know that this is going to be an episode that's going to be very beneficial, not only to my audience of educator parents, but the parents that I get to work with in our district as well, who are sometimes just at their wits' end as far
Yeah.
as not knowing what to do, battling the parental controls. How do we do this? What are some tips? What are some resources to have? And so I'm excited that we get to share your experience with Trumi today. So I want to know when or what was it that sparked just the start of Trumi. Where did this come about? Tell us that little backstory and leading us up into the conversation.
On a very personal level, you could call it a midlife crisis. And I'll explain that. I got into my 40s and I'd had a successful career in marketing. In 2020, I turned 45. The pandemic started, my mom passed away, all in the month of March. I had some exposure to this category of kid safe technology and just kind of got to a point in my life where I said, I've got to do something more with the rest of my career. With my wife's blessing, stepped away from everything I was doing to start something new and to look at we looked at the landscape. I've got a great co-founder named Dave Priest. We looked at the landscape at the time, and on one end of the spectrum, you could give your kids a $1,200 iPhone that does anything and everything. As a society, we've learned the dangers of that after a brutal 15-year experiment. On the other end of the spectrum, there were some safe things that had evolved, but they were so locked down as to be impractical. And we recognize that if the solution that's given to the kid is so impractical that they either refuse to use it or they outgrow it in 6 months, we really haven't helped that family. And that family really hasn't found the solution that they need. So we determined to come up with a solution that was frankly safer than anything out there, but also more flexible and also with a bigger view on the whole digital wellness picture. Safety is obviously the huge aspect that we talk about every day, but you can't decouple digital safety from positive mental health for kids. They go hand in hand. And so we said, let's tackle this problem in a way that we're addressing all of it.
Absolutely. And that's something that is great that you talked about. And I want to highlight something that you mentioned because as a former classroom teacher before I landed in this role, being a digital learning coordinator, this is my 8th year in this role, and seeing some students, they are walking around with these very, very high-end and expensive cell phones. But even while I was in the classroom, and you're talking about maybe 12 years ago when, iPhones were coming out, iPads were coming out, to see some of my 5th and 6th graders with phones that at that time were, yeah, a lot higher end than mine and so on, but that can do everything and all things. I know as an educator, one of the things is I did leverage that technology in my classroom for learning and making sure that it is used, to document learning and so on. But then that is when I started learning and seeing some of the dangers and some of the things that were happening because of the conversations that my students were having. And sometimes, they don't realize that they may be saying the quiet part out loud. And then I'm hearing like, oh my gosh, we were up at 2 in the morning sending messages to one another and so on. And this was pre-pandemic. And I know during pandemic too, social media, a lot of communication back and forth, whether it's through students or other people or entities. There was a lot of students too that were very hurt, and had some issues because they were just on social media continually. And so I want to ask you, you talked a little bit about sometimes that societal pressure on families and then of course the students coming and saying, well, why can't I have a cell phone
Yes.
if Bobby or Susie have a cell phone? Why can't I do that or have that? What are some of the things that you advise parents, as far as how to resist that pressure and, to determine when is the right time to get them a device?
All great questions and questions that we talk with people about every day. Um, the first counsel I give to people is be very intentional. There's a speech that I give sometimes, and I have a slide that shows, a bunch of lemmings jumping off a cliff. And I have this caption that says, just because everyone else is doing it was never the right reason to do anything. And so I counsel parents, um, really stand back and look at the need. Is there a practical need for your child to have a device? That need varies from family to family and circumstance to circumstance. So it's hard to apply an age to it. Um, but what is the practical need that a phone would meet? What's the maturity level of the child? Some kids at a younger age are ready to have the discussion of the why behind a cautious or graduated approach to technology. So if you're ready as a parent to have that why conversation with your son or daughter and say, hey, we're going to try a phone, but it's going to be a limited device. And we're not going to do social media at this point because of the things I'm concerned about, and have a respectful, constructive conversation with them and help them understand the dangers around predators, bullies, the effect of screen time on loneliness, stress, anxiety, depression. Just have an open conversation. If your child's ready to have some of those conversations, hey, maybe it's time. If there's a real need to be met. But yeah, I always counsel people, just don't go rush out and get a phone because everyone else is doing it. The other aspect of it that's getting easier now, more and more parents are aware of some of these dangers. And more parents are saying, you know what? Maybe our first child a phone when they were 9 or 8, or whatever age, but we're going to do that differently this time because I've learned. Or maybe it's, hey, we let our older kid have social media. I'm going to hold off on that this time. Um, as more and more parents are doing that, it's becoming easier for more and more parents to do that. It reduces some of that pressure. So you see groups like Wait Till 8 who are, coming together, bringing parents together saying, let's wait. And I think that's a positive movement.
Yeah, and that you're absolutely right on that. And especially with the work that I get to do with our amazing parent engagement specialist too, is that there is that need just to find a source and resources that are available. And one thing that I do want to highlight is that I always do speak with the parents that I work with, also in giving them resources and telling them that these are not I got you resources, but these are resources for you as a parent to really have that open communication and not just say, why can't I have a cell phone? Well, just because. Well, just because why? And actually, like
Yeah,
you stated perfectly, giving them those reasons and those concerns that are out there. And some of the ones that you highlighted, I mean, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of stress with our students because of social media. I'm not getting enough likes. I want to check how many likes I have or how
exactly.
many DMs that I'm getting and who are you getting these DMs from? And obviously now too, as recent as this, what was it, last month or a little bit prior to that, we heard about the case with Soul Setzer, and character AI and a lot of these platforms that are coming out where you have these chatbots and students are engaging. And now there's this parasocial relationship or there's the anthropomorphization of AI where they think it's an actual person or a
Right.
mate. And like you said, that they're dealing with that loneliness, but they've got this bot here that they're chatting with. And then, of course, some of those dangers that come with these platforms that don't have those guardrails to help, in the student safety and data privacy aspect. So now you're layering a lot more, not only on the student, but on the parent too, because the technology is moving so fast. So now I want to ask you, let's talk a little bit more about Troomi and how does Troomi address, some of these issues like we're talking about a little bit of that anxiety, depression, and stress, because this is a mobile device that we're talking about. But what are the benefits of that, not only for the student, but for the parent as well?
Yeah. So Trumi's an operating system that we put on Samsung devices. Nice phones, great cameras, phones the kids are happy to use. And it just feels and looks like an Android phone. It doesn't scream like this is a kid's phone. No, it feels like an Android phone. And it is an Android phone. It just has our OS on it. We start by keeping kids just out of some of those danger zones. So if it's true that, say, for example, addictions to inappropriate content, spending 9 hours a day on a screen, being bullied, being chased by a predator, if those are things and all the stuff on social media, that comparison culture, if those are things that lead to negative mental health outcomes, well, the converse is true that if we don't let kids into some of those dark places, we don't have to pull them back out. So at the basic level, we're helping stress, anxiety, depression by trying to help kids remain kids. Let them use technology as a tool without it becoming a tyrant. Let them experience the benefits of technology without the dangers and learn from one stage to the next how to use that technology with discipline. So by the time they're leaving home, they're ready. As an older teenager, the danger has largely passed because they've learned in a step by step way. Then we've also got functionality built into what we're doing to give parents insight into their kids. And if there's ever anything that would be flagged for, hey, this child is dealing with some of these extreme stress, depression, heaven forbid, if there's ever any hint of self harm, those things are going to be flagged and reported to the parent immediately. We've also built in functionality that parents get this really unique window into their kids' digital lives. And we've all had the experience. Every parent has had the experience where kid comes home from school. Hey, how was your day? And it's good. Thanks. Like necessarily say everything, right? And so we have found, our customers have found that with some of the insights we provide and this window into their kids' digital lives, they are a lot more connected. And it's easier for them to have those face to face conversations because they have a sense for how is my son or daughter doing behind the scenes.
And I love that security that a parent can have. And like you said, as a parent, you do have that ability to look into that usage. And that's something that is so important that I see that you're empowering parents to deal with the difficult challenges. But at the same time, like you mentioned, you're able to have those conversations too as well. How is it being used? And one thing that I do love is that you have a selected app suite that is wonderful because it's very educational, it's very user friendly, and it's technology, like you mentioned, where it's not a tyrant, but it's technology that is going to
Yeah.
be useful and educational for the student, which is what I love. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But what I love about this, Bill, is that oftentimes the conversations that I have with parents, too, especially because they do have, let's say, just the regular cell phone, is having those conversations and those talks with the students because or their children, because I always say we can just get them to pause for a second or two before they click send or share on that message, on that video, on that picture, whatever it is, because we know that there are consequences that can come either instantly or later on. And one
Yeah.
of the things that I do mention is having a clean digital footprint that when students do apply for whether it's a job, a college, a scholarship, and things of that sort, that these things do not pop up. And so this is one thing that I do love that for during the time being as the students are growing and developing and learning how to use the device in a mindful and a very careful way, that's something that can transfer over to when they do get just an all out device and think about those things.
We feel so strongly about that, some of those points that you just made. We have a feature we built called content filtering, and it blocks inappropriate things from coming in. Things like nudity are just automatically blocked. If you have this functionality turned on, that's just automatically done. And from there, as a parent, you have the ability to adjust the sensitivity of what gets blocked or flagged and what doesn't. Um, but it's not just incoming content. We do the same for outgoing content. So if in a moment of poor judgment, a kid decides to send a nude picture of themselves, for example, it's not going to go out. It's going to get stopped. The person on the other end's not going to receive it. And the parent's going to be alerted, hey, um, this just happened. And so we feel so strongly about having some of those guardrails in place that even in a moment of poor judgment, a kid can do something stupid.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is something that is amazing because that's one of the things that a lot of my parents that I work with worry about the most, because we know that once you click send, I mean, there's no taking anything back at all whatsoever. I mean,
Right.
once it's out there, it is out there, and it's going to be very easy to find those things. So I absolutely love that, because I also talk to the parents about oversharing. And so in this case, like where the student may be sending either a pic out, things of that sort, we know now that due to a lot of the platforms that are out there now, we've seen on the news a lot of AI apps that will undress, a subject in a
Yeah.
picture, and now these um, pictures are being used and being sent. I know that our parent engagement specialist, we're talking to a gentleman from ICE. It's a Department of Homeland Security, but he works with students and he works with teens, and talking about how some of the scams also, where students may be engaging with somebody on the other end that might be, obviously a bad character, but faking their age and
Yeah.
getting a picture sent and then saying, okay, this is ransom. Like, hey, if you don't want me to share this with your parents, or if you don't want me to share this with your school or on social media, you have to pay me 100 bucks, 500. And sometimes they'll go to an exorbitant fee, but he says that sometimes for as little as 50 bucks, they just, they leave you alone. But the danger is that that is out there and that that can be used against you. So I
There are
love
stories
this.
of
Mhm.
kids who get into those situations, and in one night, in a matter of hours, they go from sending the inappropriate picture to taking their life. Like that happens. The number of times that's happened here in this country is terrifying. And parents have got to be aware of some of these dangers and educating their kids. Like that's a conversation you've got to be having from a very young age. If your kid is going to be using the internet and using text messaging and whatever other channel, you've got to be having these conversations and not just assuming, oh, that would never happen to my child. No, it happens to the kid next door.
Yeah. No, and that too, like those conversation pieces, like you said, the somebody's already had those conversations, with your son or daughter, and it could have not been you. I mean, sometimes they think, no, they're too young to talk about these things. They're too young, but the chances are somebody has already had a conversation with them, or they've heard this from somebody too, either through social media or through their circle of friends. So a lot of those things are just very important. And it really breaks my heart because of, like you mentioned, there are so many students or so many young, kids around the world that due to that embarrassment, they end up doing something so drastic
Yeah.
as taking their life. But what I love in the sense of what you're able to do is kind of I see it as that huge guardrail that is much needed during this time. And the fact that parents can have those conversations and with confidence say, okay, we are going to have a communication device. You have a cell phone, you have this device here that you can use, but the
Yeah.
parent can feel safe in the evening, at night, during the day, that they know that their child is, well, they can track what it is that they're doing. But at the end of the day, the apps that are on there are not going to be apps that are going to be harmful or hurtful. So I want to ask you too now, because I know that with Troomi, one of the things is it's a phone that grows with the child.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. So, for example, from a 9-year old to maybe a 15 or 16-year old, tell us a little bit about that progression and what can a child at that age range be able to find on their device? What can they have on it, and how it can be useful for them?
So we would always suggest that younger kids, if you've got a child who's 7 or 8 or 9 who has a need for a phone, start them with the very basic of what they need, which is talk and text. And so you get a talk text plan, and it's literally $20 a month. That's it. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, all of the Troomi safeguards built in, $20 a month. Super easy. And as that child learns how to talk and text responsibly, they learn proper etiquette. They learn an understanding of what are okay messages to send and what are not okay. Then you would graduate them into group text and picture messaging. And then you'd graduate them into some additional functionality. For example, we have a safe web browser, which is awesome. Where some parents just prefer to say no browser, and that's fine. That's actually the default, is just to have it turned off. But with our safe browser, parents can determine the sites that kids can visit. They can't just indiscriminately surf the web, but can use approved websites. In our new version of that, which is coming out in January, just in a couple of weeks, AI is used to vet content before it's served to the child. So a parent can say, hey, my child can use the internet, but no inappropriate content, nothing that's considered adult, no violence, no gore, no profanity, whatever those things are. And then in real time, the browser either serves it or doesn't serve it. The best part about the new browser, and every parent who's listening who has kids my age, I guarantee is going to be stoked out of their minds. We all have this love-hate relationship with YouTube. For me, it's mostly a hate relationship, but there are some content providers that I do love. For example, I've got a 12-year-old son and an 8-year-old son who love a guy named Mark Rober, who does these great, fun science experiments with kids. And clean, uplifting, motivational content. I let them watch Mark Rober. And with our new browser, I can let them have the content from Mark Rober's channel without giving them YouTube. Think of that. I give them a YouTube channel without giving them YouTube, and they can have that content with no comments, no advertisements, no links to other videos. It's pretty game changing. And then on top of the safe browser in that third plan of ours, it's access to a suite, a collection of apps that we've put together, including, we took a really hard look as we were filtering down from, 3.5 million apps in the Google Play Store. We really looked hard at what are the things that teachers are recommending, because teachers have a fantastic view on the day in, day out of students and what they need and what's healthy and what's not. So that's part of that filtering process. And, you know, essentially with those apps, we can give kids what they need, but without the garbage. You can't do a social media app. You can't do anything that's got any form of adult content, just not possible on a Troomi phone.
I love it. And it's so wonderful because, again, at the same time, the students get what they need. They still get that phone. They still don't feel or have that fear of missing out because they still have a device. Yes, it may not have all that other extra stuff, but you know what? At the end of the day, when the parent gets to sit down with their child, and like you mentioned, they can go ahead and hand select that YouTube channel without any of that extra stuff. They
Yeah.
get to download all that content that is safe for them or educational that's still gonna help them. I mean, it's great, and there's gonna be a sense of peace also and at ease because again, there's not gonna be that anxiety, that anxiousness or depression at the same time because what if there's no reason for the child to be able to get into anything that they're not supposed to, and for
Right.
the parent, getting that peace of mind and, it doesn't matter if you're 8 or 15 or even if you were like, 18, I think that this is still such an amazing device to be able to have, and so that children at that very young age can start learning how to use, these digital devices responsibly and understanding it that, seeing it first as the tool that it can be for education purposes, obviously for communication and emergencies, as seeing that. And then later on, as they grow, it can definitely change and impact the students in a positive way because
And
I know lately there's been a lot of teachers that have been posting about the anxious generation and the way
yes,
that they see students coming into the classrooms, and you remove a cell phone and you see students that just it's like a completely different student when that cell phone is taken away, and
yeah.
they become rebellious in many ways. In other ways, they just withdraw, they get upset, and
At
it's
least in the short term. I follow some of the schools in some of the school districts and states where they've just said, you know what? We're going to make this easy and just make the rules around phones in classrooms far reaching. And I've even read, stories from students where the students were like, yeah, the first week was tough, but now we experience and they acknowledge we have less stress. there's less bullying, people are kinder to each other, and we're not distracted while we're learning. And so we could talk more, but that's a whole conversation in and of itself. Uh, but I think there's a real benefit to letting teachers teach and letting kids learn.
Yes. No, I absolutely agree. And I love that. Well, I mean, Bill, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today and just sharing the work that you're doing, the passion. And, I can't wait. Definitely we're going to put Troomi.com. We're going to put that all on our website. Definitely going to be sharing it, even with the parents that I get to work with and share this as a resource. So I want to ask you though, before we kind of start wrapping up the show, tell us where, obviously I was at the website, but tell us anything. I do see on the website there's something here right now. So maybe for a parent that is looking for a device during this time and they're thinking about, hey, like they're asking for that 800, $1,200 device. Maybe this is going to be a safer option. So right now I'm seeing something here that it says holiday sale free
Yeah.
Troomi phone Pro. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, right now, we're offering a Troomi Phone Pro, which is a Samsung Galaxy A15. So beautiful device. My 15-year-old daughter got one and went, "Whoa," because it felt like such a nice device. And it's got a 15 megapixel camera, which, that's the number one thing for kids is it's got to have a good camera. And we're making that available for free right now during the holiday season when you sign up for a new line of service. And frankly, I'll get you a promotional code that's evergreen that'll get your listeners and your viewers a discount into the future as well. But that's something that we've got going on right now.
That is wonderful. And as you can see, guys, those of you that are joining us and checking out the video, you do see here Troomi.com. They do have their holiday sale here. But again, you go through this website alone is amazing. As I was going through this throughout the day, just to see the resources that it has, I'm like, this is every parent's dream. Every question that I have ever had from a parent when they come to our webinar Wednesdays there in our district, as I was going through each tab and reading, like, this is the answer. This is the answer that a lot of parents are looking for. And that's why I was so excited to have you here on the show. So please make sure that you do go and visit Troomi.com. And of course, we will link that in the show notes. And also, don't forget that we will be having that evergreen code too as well. So we can go ahead and share with you. That'll stay there forever. And, just thank you, Bill. I really appreciate that. This is amazing. I appreciate your time. I appreciate this amazing work that you are doing with your company. And I can't wait to see what else is coming in the future because, like I said, after today and being able to share this out with my community, I'm more than certain that there's going to be a lot of parents and educators that are going to be looking at Trumi as a solution. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
All right, Bill. Well, thank you so much. And before we go, we're definitely going to be wrapping up with the last three questions here of our show. So, are you ready, my friend?
I am.
All right, perfect. Here we go. Question number one. As we know, every superhero has a weakness or a pain point. So for Superman, kryptonite was that one thing that kind of weakened him. So I want to ask you, in the current state of education, what would you say would be your current edu-kryptonite?
We kind of just touched on it. It's this whole debate about phones in schools. And I come from a family of educators. I'm kind of the black sheep in my family because I wasn't a teacher. And I hear the stories from my brother, for example, about how teaching changed with the challenges that came with kids being on devices and distracted and just kind of checked out. And I've read stories of, teachers leaving the profession, great, phenomenal teachers who are like, I can't do this, because I don't have the kids' attention. And so I think that's when we've got to just get to a place where kids can have devices, but they're left out of the learning environment and where teachers can do their best teaching and kids can do their best learning.
Perfect. Great answer. Thank you so much. All right, question number two. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
It would be a big sentence in big capital letters with an exclamation point that says, "Stop giving kids social media."
Yeah.
And the why behind that is so many of the challenges that kids get into with safety, with pornography, with mental health challenges start with social media. I heard a wise person that I know was once asked, the right age to give your kids social media. And I was like, oh, what's he going to say? And the person responded, well, it depends. How soon do you want your boys to be addicted to pornography? And how soon do you want your girls to feel badly about themselves? And I was like, dang. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So that's a line that we draw at Troomi. We don't do social media, and parents have got to understand the dangers there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Great answer. All right. Last question is, if you could trade places with one person for a day, who would it be and why?
This is, this is going to sound funny. My 15-year-old daughter, Ainsley. Uh, for one, I've always wanted to sing, and Ainsley is a phenomenal, phenomenal singer and performer. That would be fun to experience. But number two is just to be in her shoes among her peers for a day and experience firsthand all the stuff that they're dealing with and see it from their perspective. We spend a lot of time talking to kids, but to actually be in a kid's shoes for a day, that would be pretty eye opening.
Yeah, no, that is for sure. Most definitely. Well, thank you so much, Bill. I really appreciate you being here with us and just sharing the amazing work that you're doing. And I'm just so thankful for this interview, thankful for the work that you're doing, because honestly, this really means a lot to me too, as well, just because now I have something wonderful to share with the parents that I get to work with. So I'm really excited about
Thank
this and
you.
seeing where this is going to go, because I know, like you said, January, you've got some new stuff coming out, the new OS, you've got the AI vetting, and I could definitely just see this as something that's going to continue to grow, especially now with parents that are going to be just not necessarily like, "Hey, like, I got you, parents," but just to have that peace of mind, and
Yeah.
then students also just that mental wellness and not have to worry about all that anxiety, depression, and added stresses from social media, and they can just be kids, like you said at the very beginning. I absolutely love it. So thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much, Trumi. And thank you to all our wonderful listeners. Thank you so much for catching this episode. And please make sure you jump over to our website at myedtech.life, where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 304 episodes, where I promise you will find something that you can sprinkle on to what you are already doing great. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you jump over to our YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up and a like. We're trying to start 2025 with 1,000 subscribers. That is our goal, and we're almost there. But could you be our 1,000th subscriber? Please make sure you jump over and let that be you. And also, if you're not following us on social media, please make sure you follow us at My EdTech Life. You can find us on all socials. And of course, the links are there on our website too, as well. So thank you, as always, for all of your support. And my friends, until next time, don't forget, stay techie.